Greetings from the Sephardic temple in Cedarhurst. My drasha this week is built upon the Devar Torah delivered by Chacham Isaac Sassoon at our Zoom minyan on Wednesday morning, at which we commemorated the first anyo of our dear friend Eric Johnson of blessed memory. The Devar Torah, the nucleus for it, is found in Chacham Sassoon's commentary on the Chumash, Destination Torah, published in 2001. Tomorrow's Torah reading asks us to consider the question: what is the connection between law and justice? In Deuteronomy chapter 16, we have two important verses in this regard. The first is the end of verse 18. V'shafetu et ha'am mishpat tzedek, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. The two key understandings that we must glean from this verse are: one, we must recognize that law and righteousness are not the same thing. And two, mishpat and tzedek, law and righteousness, are not inseparable. Numerous societies one can identify in history where law and judges were plentiful, yet righteousness was in short supply. Indeed, there are still countries today whose inhabitants are crushed by lawful tyranny. We are all aware of significant cases in recent decades regarding sanctioned abuse of women, and even people sentenced to capital punishment without due process of witnesses and material evidence, as well as laws that prohibit the activities of minority religions. Torah highlights for us in this parasha the fact that throughout history, good people have struggled to bring righteousness into line with the law system of their day, and we find that the struggle still continues. Even laws that began life equitably may fall out of step with righteousness, which is a variable whose measure is an evolving quality, man. Therefore, unless linked to righteousness, like the Torah's law, any legal system is liable to ossify, excellent as it may have been at its inception. The sages of the Talmud were very alive to this possibility. We learn in Masechet Baba Metzia the following: Rabbi Yochanan said, Jerusalem was destroyed only because they based their judgments strictly upon the letter of the biblical law and did not go beyond the requirements of the law. In chapter 16 of Deuteronomy, which we have looked at verse 18, now we look at verse 19. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Righteousness, righteousness you shall pursue. This verse, a great overriding principle of Torah, means that there is never an excuse to do injustice. Indeed, Torah is righteousness, as it is repeated over and over again in Psalm 119, and succinctly in Psalm 19, God's judgments are altogether righteous. Some might object to this because bringing righteousness to fruition is all about making decisions and choices, and therefore there exists a kind of relativism. A specific law on the books can be overruled when the great principle of righteousness might be infringed. Every case needs to be judged by its own merits. Nevertheless, tzedek, tzedek is twice repeated because Moses is telling us that the key is to get as humanly possible to the truth. But the verse also has tirdof. One must always be looking in corners, and you have to go and to pursue righteousness. Means you have to run after it. One could be critical of certain books today. It's a very dangerous thing to just sit and open a book to come up with a judgment. One obviously needs guidelines and principles like tzedek, tzedek tirdof, righteousness, righteousness you shall pursue. But it also has to be in touch with real people and reality. Tzedek is not abstract, and it is not even static. It's always changing. Thus, it is a very complicated issue. In the end, however, this is, I believe, a helpful and positive message during the period after Tisha B'Av. Because Torah gives us laws along with their corrective, righteousness. And this is the answer to our question. The psalmist, on confronting laws that were becoming decoupled from righteousness, did not lose hope, but rather proclaims, Ki ad tzedek yashuv mi'ishpat v'acharav kol yishrei lev. Judgment shall yet return to righteousness, and all that are upright of heart shall follow it. Amen. For those of us who have not registered for the service tomorrow and will not be with us during the Shachrit service of Shabbat, and who are looking forward to commemorating the Meldado of a loved one, we will once again recite the Hashkabot memorial prayers today on Ereb Shabbat. Our intention is to bring honor to the deceased, to strengthen the hearts of those who remember, and to console all who mourn. We will also recite a prayer for healing at the end. Tov Shem Yishem Tov Yom HaMaved Miyam Yivaledo Sof Davar Kol Nishma Et HaElohim Yirah V'Mitzvotav Shemor Ki Zeh Kol Ha'adam Menucha Nechona B'Shiva Yonah Tacha Kanfei HaShekhinah Sham Tehei Menat U'Mechitzat B'Shivat Nefesh Hashem HaTov Moshe Ben Dov Lanter HaKohen Harav Shlomo Bihar Raphael Ben Yosef Confino Yosef Yitzchak Galapo Meir Matzliach Levi Simcha Ben Yehuda Shain Menachem Bechor Yitzchak Zakaria Nisim Daniel Crespi Rahamim Avraham Franco William Greenfield Charles Kreskas Yitzchak Ben Raphael Salem Jack D. Foreign Solomon A. Russo Sidney Miller Mordechai Artesta Yom Tov H. Saadi Murray Alcasar Morris Calderon Rafael Confino David Hassan Morris Israel Max Joseph Morris Red Levy Jack Lamida Solomon M. Matza Joseph Roth Isaac Siegel Yaakov Menachem Baker Meir Ben Avraham Davis Simcha Ben Benjamin Goldblatt Aharon Ben Avraham HaKohen Yitzchak Ben Levin V'Yitel Greenberg HaLevi Harav Avraham Dov Ben Aharon Verisha Marins David Ben Bela Betesh Tevel Ben Shemuel Slepian Shragab Ben Noach Hadassah Rosen Reuven Ben Arthur Veruth Bluestein Shemuel Ben Moshe Russo Chaim Yechezkel Shraga Ben Yitzchak Yaakov Eliyahu Daniel Susi Binyamin Teleki Ben Pesach Yehuda Gold Ben Avraham Barach Leah Yom Tov Ben Moshe Kamai Yitzchak Ben Gabriel Babaganov Eliezer Ben Avraham Babula Kraus Aharon Ben Avraham Cohen Ruach Adonai Tinichem Began Eden HaMelech Berachama V'Echos V'Yachmol Alehem V'Levei Elehem HaShalom HaMishkabam Yihi HaShalom Hem V'Chol B'nei Yisrael HaShochabim Imahem B'Chol HaRachamim V'Hasalichot V'Chein Yihi Ratzon V'Nomar Amen. This Shabbat we also commemorate the first year of Shirley Beja. Heshechayimim Savarachot Mipinini Mikra Tenula Miperi Adeha Yalaluha Basha'arim Ma'aseha Rachmana de Rachmanuta Dilehi Yemalama Al Kadmohi Duchran Ha'isha Hanichbedet Cyril Beja Bat Avraham V'Sara V'gam Chaya Denenberg Bat Chaim Sarah Yitzchak Azaria Simcha Eshet Yosef Ben Bassett Dora Maxon Yvette Hopkins Simcha Bat Esther Megidash Rosa Kamai Bat Eliyahu Barokas Amelia Matzel Chana Fishman Bat Harav Matzliach Yitzchak Clara Elias Esther S. Kamai Betty Russo Clara Zuckerbrod Bertha Cohen Sarah Modek Elisa Ano Sophie Azarad Nancy Colcomiro Sarah Confino Rose Elias Sarah Elias Lena Levy Rebecca Pesarillo Rebecca Shapiro Esther Zanana Sarah Yaakov Mavora, Tilly Traeger, Lillian Davis, Luna Clara Bachaim Verivka Jamil, Basha Granit Bat Moshe Arya Vabela, Millie Bat Ezra Sarah Harari, Sarah Letterman Bat Yaakov and Miriam, Rachel Bat Shimon Esther Peso, Eshet Chaim Halio, Amalia Aranya Bat Eliyahu V'Sarah, Sarah Bauman Bat Shlomo B'Chana Elias, Shraga Gershon Maya, Sarah Gershon Maya, Esther Lampert Bat Velvolder, Elka Matrano Bat Mordechai, Vida Kaisler Bat Yosef V'Suko Kasuto, Yosefa Kleinstein Bat Yitzchak V'Aida, Sarah Kabaso Bat Feivel. Ruach Adonai Tinichem Began Eden, Hamelech Berachama V'Chos V'Yachmol Alehen, V'Leve'elihan HaShalom V'Mishkaban Yihi HaShalom. Hein V'chol Benot Yisrael HaShachavot Imahem B'chlal HaRachamim V'Hasalichot, V'chein Yihi Ratzon V'Nomar Amen. Misha Beirach Avotinu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah, Hu Yivarech Et HaCholim, Esther Bat Malka Getenya, Shoshana Chereskin Bat Moshe V'Sara Barokas, Miriam Roth Bat Moshe, Dan Ben Sarah Rosen, Edna Sarah Bat Clary, Shemuel Aharon Führer, Yitzchak Ben Chana Aloni, Yaakov Ben Najia, Chaim Ben Meir Hillel V'Dona Goldsmith, Zahava Bat Avraham V'Simcha Eshet Rachamim Franco, Shoshana Eshet Moshe Sharabi, Devorah Maya Bat Masha Michal, Freda Beja Bat Rachel, Clara Bat Kochava, Katriel Bar Hana, Sukastein Bat Rezel, Yosef Ben Yaakov, Rachel Esther Bat Aida, Rachel Penina Bat Devorah Esther, Sarah Feldman Bat Baruch Nechana, Yisrael Pinchas Ben Chaim Shapiro, V'gam Ishto Rachel, Fliegel Shalom Blaustein Bat Etalea, Esther Miriam Kraus Bat Pinchas V'Yentel, Herschel Bauman, Shlomo Ben Chana Eliyahu, Yocheved Han Bat Runya Fremet, Joya Persily Bat Moshe V'Klara, Elka Shendel Winkler Bat Psura, Fega Rivka Bachana, Shemuel Reuven Ben Esther, Baruch Eliezer Ben Gila, Avraham Ben Fortuna Sayeg, Ilan Nesha Ben Rivka, Meir Ben Avraham, Avraham Ben Sarah Visser, Orban Vered Veron Masarano, Leah Lind Bat Salika, Jackie Perazzo, Shulamit Cohen Bat Rachel, Yerachmiel Ben Shemuel Samaya, Sima Basha Bat Fego Gittel, David Ben Rivka, Nechama Eshe Kalib Shemuel Russo, Rachel Bat Zimbalyani, Devorah Bachana Russo, Ita Bat Frida, Leah Chana Bat Yeta. Hamakom Mishlach Lahem, Refuah Shlema Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf. Elna Refana Lahem, Vachlimam Vachziram Le'itanam, V'chein Yehi Ratzon, V'nomar Amen. O Lord, we also pray for the victims who have perished during this coronavirus pandemic and for their survivors. May your compassion and love be upon them all. May you provide consolation for those who mourn. For those who are quarantined either willingly or due to their having been infected, please God, give them strength in their time of isolation and anxiety. Heal them and shield them from despair. May the Holy One bless first responders and medical personnel who risk their lives, and may God grant expertise and grace to all whose hearts, bodies, and minds are called into use for the sake of those who are infected. May God grant success to all members of our armed forces and law enforcement who work diligently to protect us from harm. Yehi ratzon milifnei Avinu shebashamayim, la'atzor ha'magefa v'hamashkit me'aleinu u'me'al kol olamo v'imru amen. May it be the will of our Father in heaven to avert disease and destruction from us and from his entire world. And let us say Amen. Boas and Tradas, Ereb Shabbat Shalom, from the Sephardic Temple of Cedarhurst.